Welcome back. We've got a little bit more fun stuff with some boring old numbers and data, but it's a really important and useful part of dealing with collections that have a lot of values, especially if you have numerical values. If you're pulling in scores from everyone, if you want to find out the high score, right? And you got a list of scores for everyone, how are you going to find that high score? We can iterate through tons of array values and say, okay, which one, when added to the other one comes out ahead. You can do averages. You can do a lot of this math under the hood, and you could probably figure out ways to do it. But man, it's so much easier when you just have a dot minimum, dot maximum, dot average, dot aggregate, or dot contains, all these things that just make life so much easier for you to deal with when you're trying to manage data. So like I said, really dry, really boring, but incredibly useful, and you're going to find it really useful. And I'm talking about the link classes. This is a way to sort data or to get data from a list. So right here, I'm going to show you where I'm using these link classes. So I'm creating a few print statements, right? And I'm getting it from the sets values here. So I've got this array here, and let's just say I'm going to start adding some random values into it. And let's just create a bunch of random values and see what we get here when I run these print statements. All right, well, let's dump the aggregate for now. So we'll just look at three things: average, minimum, and max. Okay, so what link does is just gives us a really great system for organizing and for pulling out parts of our arrays or our lists and collections that we want to know. All right, so let's just see here. Our minimum value is 0. Now, one of the things that I said previously, which is really important to know, is that because I made this a public variable, once it becomes public, these values don't change even though I changed them in the code. A lot of times it's a real pain because once you declare that array public, it takes these values that you put in the editor instead of the values that you specify in code. Now, what I could do here, or when you declare the variable as global, right? What I can do is just say this. To override that under start, I could create, let's call this new. All right. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Instead of debugging that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call that private. And that's going to erase all of the data that's put over here. So it's going to disappear from my editor here. So there it goes, disappeared, right? Now I'm going to hit play. And there we go. Okay, so the minimum value, or average of all those values, is 30. The minimum value is 4, and the maximum value is 79. Now what that basically does is just giving us some simple math that would be hard to calculate on our own, not impossible, but something in one line of code that allows us to get some values from that long list of numbers. And just imagine if that list of numbers were 100 long, if we had 100 numbers to parse through and figure out values for. If we had 1,000, if we had 100,000. A lot of times when we deal with game data, we have tons and tons of values that we want to parse through and get the maximum value or the minimum value or average them out. And this link system is a really great way to do it. So once again, let's just go back here and see what I did. Once I say using system link, it's going to add a bunch of extra classes that are going to be appended to my list. So I can say here, like, sets values dot, and a lot of these aggregate, a lot of these things average, a lot of these come from the link system. So I can get a lot of the stuff from that list really easily. I can get some of the data from that. Last is also a really good one. So I can say what's the last data in that array or that list. So there's a sum. There's a whole lot of stuff here that we have that are available. So usually I say when you're going to use a list, when you're going to bring a list into the mix, arrays aren't going to do it for you. I not only bring in system collections generic, which uses the list classes, but I also bring in links so I can manage my list really easily, and I get all those extra tools. All right, so that's a little bit about some extra classes and extra tools that will help you organize, manage, and access data inside of your collections, and that's using those link classes.